Hey guys, it's Michael. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to a new video. Today I want to show you how you can build an amazing upper body with the help of weighted pull-ups and weighted dips. In this video we're gonna cover why weighted dips and weighted pull-ups are the gold standard exercise to build an athletic upper body. We're gonna cover how you can optimize your training for hypertrophy, and we're gonna cover how your nutrition should look like in order to maintain and build on a low body fat percentage. Why are pull-ups and dips the best upper body builders? Take best not too serious, as there are of course millions of other ways to train and none of them is wrong. I just like to convince you that these two especially come with great benefits combined in just two exercises. The first reason I like to point out is posture restoration. Pull-ups start overhead, dips end behind the body. We train our shoulder in its full available range of motion of flexion and extension. Getting strong in all of these ranges will help you to stay mobile and less prone to injury. In times where desk work keeps us compressed and we lose our ability to expand our rib cages and constantly get tight necks, painful upper back and tight chests, hanging from a bar and opening up the frontal rib cage in a dip are a real blessing for shoulders and posture development. Reason number two why I am a big fan of weighted pull-ups and weighted dips is the balanced muscles that you get. As I said in the beginning, dips and pull-ups are two of many very good exercises that will help you to build muscle. The main thing that most people love about these two exercises is the look though they create. As they are compound calisthenics exercises that are trained in a big range of motion, they usually lead to a very proportional development, especially in shoulders, chest, arms and core. This helps to create a very athletic physique, looking less inflated in isolated regions, but overall you get a very dense muscle look. Reason number three is a biomechanical one, and that is that weighted pull-ups and weighted dips are hard where you are strong, so they are perfect muscle builders. Neuromechanical matching is a very complicated term for a simple mechanism that decides if an exercise is a good choice for a muscle group or less potent for that muscle. In simple words, the body wants to move efficiently. Our nervous system therefore uses the muscles which have the best internal leverages to produce locomotion. So only if a muscle has a comparable good leverage in an exercise, it will be highly active and so well trained. In dips as well as pull-ups, due to the large range of motion of shoulder and elbow, this works for nearly all bigger upper body muscle groups. They will all be stimulated quite decently with just those two exercises. The data is not very complete in this field, but at least for most of the muscle groups we have evidence, and for the rest we have solid assumptions that need to be proved correct in theory. From the practical side of things, we can see every day how it works, but let's break it down. Let's start with pull-ups and the primary movers of this exercise, the latissimus and the teres major. The lats and teres are very strong in the mid-range of the pull-up. This is also where the exercise naturally becomes the hardest as the bar distance increases until we hit around 90 degrees of elbow flexion. So the lats can work strong where the pull-up is heavy, making it a great fit and a great lat builder. There are some differences in the lat area stimuli depending on the grip width, but we are talking about that later. Let's continue with the arms, the biceps brachii, the brachialis and the brachioradialis. In pull-ups, depending on the height of your pull, you go from a fully extended to a fully flexed elbow. This makes sure that the brachialis, the brachioradialis are trained very well. The biceps brachii will support and stabilize the movement and is probably not a prime mover here, though due to antagonistic inhibition, especially in the lower ranges of elbow flexion. Now let's talk about the upper back, so the rhomboids and our traps. During the pull-ups, the arm moves from the overhead position behind or next to the body. This means that the shoulder blades need to move from elevation and upward rotation through depression, downward rotation, and retraction at the end of the pull-up. As the rhomboids and traps are the prime movers of the shoulder blades here, the stimulus will be great. To get the best activation for those muscles, make sure not to skip the top position. Here they are very active, as the other prime movers of the pull-up will lose leverage. And the last muscle on our list for the pull-up is the posterior deltoid. Especially in pull-ups or chin-ups with narrow grip where the arm moves behind the body, the rear delts are highly active in the bottom and top range of the pull-up where the lats and teres lose some leverage. So it's impossible not to build solid rear delts with chin-ups and pull-ups. Now we take a look at the dip. The first muscle group are our pecs, so the pectoralis major, with its sternal, costal and clavicular head. During the dip, we move the arm behind the body and stretch the pecs around the rib cage. There is no leverage data available for this movement. We can assume though that with increased shoulder extension, so moving the arm behind the body, the lower fibers of the chest gain leverage. When we grip a bit wider in dips and add the element of adduction, so moving the arm closer to the body sideways, the middle chest fibers will most likely be also highly active. The upper chest, mostly responsible for shoulder flexion with the arm in front of the body, is probably the least active part and could need some additional volume for a complete look. Let's continue with the triceps brachii. As one of the biggest muscles in our body, the triceps is a pure powerhouse in dips. It gains leverage with elbow flexion peaking at around 90 degrees where the dip is the hardest. An absolute match. The different heads of the triceps will be more or less active in different parts of the dip, supporting the movement through the full range of motion. A strong dip means a strong triceps. The anterior deltoid. Again, for the anterior deltoid, there is no data available on how it behaves with the arms behind the body. Just from anecdotal evidence, there is not a single weighted calisthenics athlete I know that has a strong dip and a small front delt. So I think we can take it as given that the front delt is highly active and well trained with dips. Reason number 4 why I think weighted pull-ups and weighted dips are a perfect upper body builder is the core integration with body control and tension. During dips and pull-ups, the lower body moves freely in space. During dips and pull-ups, you therefore are forced to keep your midsection and hips under tension in order to avoid swinging. Those two exercises are not primarily core builders, but they will definitely teach you a solid body and positioning awareness as well as body tension. Reason number 5, weighted pull-ups and weighted dips tend to benefit from lower body fat percentages compared to other exercises where more weight is better or neglectable. In pull-ups and dips, our performance benefits from lower body fat percentages as we have less total weight to move. This helps athletes to maintain lower body fat percentages and stay all year round in a relatively sharp look a lot of other athletes are interested in. Now that we discussed why dips and pull-ups are great exercises to build an athletic and aesthetic upper body, let's take a look at the demands we have for the training. And the first thing we want to take a look at is the necessary equipment. Weighted dips and pull-ups are great because every gym has a pull-up bar and a dip bar. Additionally, you will need a weighted belt in order to make sure that you can progressively load up your sets. If you get one, I want to give you some tips on how it should look like. It's always good if the belt is long enough that you can close it in front. This will secure the fit and avoid that it slips. And also, if it's not too tight, it helps you not to sit super tight on the lower back and give you lower back pain, but it sits comfortable on the hip. Then, if you want to invest in a professional belt like the King of Weighted belt, it comes with 3 nice carabiners so you can close it and 1 for each side of the daisy chain. And it comes with a nice daisy chain instead of a metal chain, keeping your closes intact. No bruises on the leg, and you have the comfort of hanging the weights low, giving you a nice center of mass and good control for your lifts. And for this video, I have a nice deal for you. With the code Hypertrophy, you can get 10% on the King of Weighted equipment to make sure you have the best gear for your hypertrophy training. If you are training dips, every regular dip station will do the job perfectly. If you want to invest in a bit more nice equipment though, I would suggest that you get something like the SL Pro adjustable dip bars, because here you can change the width and make sure that you can train more triceps or more chest dominant, or train around the discomfort which comes from maybe a too wide or too narrow grip, and you can just easily adjust it on the width that you need. You can screw it tight, it doesn't shake, and give you a nice support on your dips. Code Hypertrophy, of course, also works for these dip bars. The next topic for our training will be the range of motion. As we are now not in a competitive environment, in the end you can define your range of motion yourself. So you don't need to stay within certain standards that you can find on social media. I just want to give you a quick guideline on how to find a perfect range of motion for you. The first one, especially when it comes to hypertrophy training, that is important, is you want to stick to a range of motion that targets all the muscles you want to target. If you do half reps in the top range or half reps in the lower ranges, you will miss out on the muscle groups that you would target with the full range of motion. If that is okay for you, I have nothing said, but for this guide, that means a comparable big range of motion is key. B, it should be pain-free and comfortable. Only if you can train that technique for a very long time and overload it without discomfort and pain, it's the right range of motion for you. And C, as we are training pretty heavy in heavier ranges, so the 5 to 10 rep range for hypertrophy, it should be a technique that is also maintainable with higher loads. That is very, very important, because if you have a very quick technique breakdown with heavier weights, you might want to adjust it so that B and A again applies. When we're talking about hypertrophy training, we need to talk about progressive overload, as that is, on the long run, the key driver of muscle growth. What does progressive overload actually mean? It means that you need to be able, over time, to do more reps or move more weight with a standardized form on the same relative intensity. Burn that into your skin. This is the most important part when you want to grow. In the end, it just means that with a standardized form, so always the same form without more form breakdown than in the previous sessions, over time you want to be able to add 1.25 kg or 2.5 kg or repetition to your training sets. So you want to be under the same conditions able to perform a stronger set. If you can make sure that this happens on the long run, there is no way around growing muscle if you fuel yourself enough. Before I show you different systems on how to progressively overload, let's define some standards that we want to work with. The first one is that we want to work in a moderate rep range. I would suggest you to take the 5 to 10 rep range. If you like heavier training, more towards 5. If you enjoy more the 10 side of things, then you can also use that. It's important that it's fun, and it's important that it's moderate. Why is that important? Because we really want to have muscular and form failure as the limiting factor of our sets. If it gets too exhausting, like if oxygen is the limiting factor, or focus, or other different factors that can come with super low or super high number of repetitions, it's very hard to create progressive overload, and it accumulates unnecessary amounts of fatigue. So a moderate rep range is the gold standard here. When it comes to the relative intensity, so how close to failure we want to train, we should stick to roughly 1 to 2 reps in the tank for all our sets. It's okay to have a bit less sometimes. It's also okay to train to complete failure sometimes, but on average we want to stay roughly 1 to 2 reps away from failure. That just helps with having roughly the same stimulus for hypertrophy, but on a highly decreased amount of fatigue. So that is just the biggest bang for our buck on the long run. Then C, as we already discussed, a standardized form is super important to make sure that we're actually progressively overloading. Because only if the form is standardized, we can compare intensities
to one another and see if we're actually getting stronger and then on the long run also bigger. D, we want to have 3 to 6 hard sets per muscle group per session. Depends on how many sessions we do a week. If you want to do a lot of sessions, so 3 sessions, you want to go with roughly 2 sets per sessions. If you go with 2 weekly sessions, you can do 3, maybe 4 sets per session and the rest on another run. But 3 to 6 sets on a frequency of 2 to 3, it will definitely be recoverable from session to session if we stick to 1 to 2 reps in reserve, and that will give you the best middle way between recovery and stimulus, and that will make you grow. And as I promised you, I will also give you many different systems on how you can achieve progressive overload and so build your dream physique. The first one is the most easiest one and is suitable for beginners who just started with weighted calisthenics because they have a lot of adaptation potential yet and they can progress session by session for sure. And here what we're going to do is a linear addition of weight session by session or week by week. So a system could look like that. We start in week 1 with 3 sets, 6 repetitions, moderate. We do that for 2 sessions with 10 kg. In the second week, we do our 3 session, 3 times 6 repetitions, and we add 1.25 kg. And that is what we're going to do every week until the progression stalls. And that is the most easiest form of progression, a linear one. The next progression that you can use to make progressive overload happen in your training is a double progression. It's still a very simple form of progression, but it will definitely also work for intermediate to advanced athletes as the pace in which we increment weight it is much more chill. So what we need here is not a fixed rep scheme, but we want to have a range. For this example, I took the rep range 6 to 8. Here's now how it works. In week 1, what you would then do is start at 3 times 6, in this example 20 kg. Remember, reps in reserve 1 to 3. Then we add a rep and we do 3 times 7. We add a rep 3 times 8 until we hit the upper border of the rep range. If we hit that upper border, we increase the weight and we start over at the lower border again. So 3 times 6, 3 times 7, 3 times 8 at 22.5 kg. And then we add weight again and start over. Of course, that does not need to happen on a weekly basis. Remember, only if you are able to hit all 3 sets roughly in that 1 rep to 2 reps in reserve range and with a standardized form. This is just an example so you know how that progression scheme works. The next system for progressive overload and so to grow your muscles I want to show you are block by block approaches. And the first one we're going to take a look at is an approach where we are looking for descending reps in reserve, so descending relative intensity throughout the course of a block, where a training block is just a period of training with 3 to 6 weeks roughly. And the whole idea is that within this time frame, we keep the training constant. We don't change anything and we repeat it until it becomes lighter. So we're just training a certain scheme until the reps in reserve go up and it becomes lighter. And that means within a block, we are not progressively overloading, we are progressively overloading block by block. And this is especially relevant if you are becoming more advanced, because then adaptations will slow down. Progress week by week, session by session won't happen anymore, and we need a slower pace to increment the weights. And this is where block by block approaches work very, very good. Here is an example. You could start in week number 1. Let's say we're doing 3 times 6 with 50 kg, and in week 1 it's an average roughly 2 reps in reserve. And then we repeat that for 4 weeks, and in week 4, in this example, does not need to be the case for you, we're ending up in average with 3 reps in reserve. And as we're now leaving the 1 to 2 reps in reserve, which we're looking for, we are increasing the weight to 52.5 kg. And then we repeat that until we hit roughly that 3 reps in reserve, and then we can increase again. And this makes sure that we have a slow but steady pace. It's a bit more planning intense, but On the long run, this will be a very, very nice system for more advanced athletes. After descending relative intensity, so descending reps in reserve, we want to take a look at the next block by block approach, which is suitable for even more advanced athletes, which is ascending reps in reserve. And the idea behind it is that within a training block, we increase the weight and we decrease the reps in reserve, so we make it more intense. And then in the next block, we repeat that system from a higher starting point. So again, we're progressively overloading not within a training block, but block by block. And why is it suitable for more advanced athletes? Because the average load is in the first weeks a bit lower, so our passive structures have a bit more time to recover, as we're not training on high reps in reserve all the time. So how would that look in practice is that we start with, let's say, a 3x6 at 45 kg, which is a rear 4. Then we're increasing the weight and we maybe have a rear 3. We're increasing weight again, we have a rear 2, and we're ending up with reps in reserve. With reps in reserve 1 in the last week of our block. As we cannot proceed from here, as otherwise we would leave our range. Maybe you could do another week with rear 0, but as we don't want to risk any injuries and don't want to train too intense to get too fatigued, we would start over in week 5 again with a 3x6 at our rear 4, but as adaptation happened, we are increasing block by block by 2.5 kg, and we're starting again with a rear 4, then 3, 2, 1, and then we would start over again on the rear 4, but not with 47.5 kg, but 2.5 kg. This again, similar to the old system, makes the pace of increasing weight much slower, and we're now having a pretty joint-friendly approach, as our passive structures, especially in the first 2 weeks, have a lot of time to recover. Let's discuss the last important part of our hypertrophy training, and that is nutrition. And we want to focus on how we can make main gaining possible. Everything starts, of course, with tracking our body weight. Make sure to always track it at the same time of the day, preferably in the morning after the toilet, and that you do it daily so that we can get a weekly average, as we want to cut out fluctuations due to different water retentions. For women, they have different weights during the period, so make sure that you focus on a weekly average and not on individual days. And of course, you want to use any kind of application to track your calories to get an overview of what you are actually consuming. Second step will be to calculate your maintenance calories. You will find tons of calculators online. In the linked document, there's also explained how you can do it so that you get a starting point of what you need to eat in order to maintain your weight. So you will get a caloric goal, and this is what you want to then distribute to the different macronutrients to make sure that you maintain your body weight. And here there are some recommendations that we want to use for our training, and that is 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram body weight, roughly 0.8 to 1 gram of fat per kg body weight. Women can go up to 1.2 grams of fat in order to regulate the hormones better, so don't go that low if you are a female athlete. And the rest you want to fill up with carbs, as carbs are key for performance and key for recovery, so make sure to not skip your carbs. And how you can calculate how much energy they have in order to fit your maintenance calories, you can calculate with 4 kilocalories for protein, 9 for fat, and 4 for carbs, and then just match your caloric goal. Now that we calculated our maintenance calories, we need to learn how to adjust them over time, as it was just an estimated number that needs to be developed over time. As also with growing muscles, our maintenance calories will increase over time, so also the intake needs to increase. Now, let's take a look at the different scenarios and how we can adjust them. Case number one would be stable weight, which would be perfect if we maintain as long as performance is going up and sleep and recovery is nice. If we have stable weight but performance goes down, sleep and recovery is poor, then you want to increase your caloric intake by around 100 to 150 calories, especially of carbs, because they will fuel you, they will help you to perform better in training and to recover better. If you're losing weight, that's something we also don't want to have. So if you have a slight loss, meaning you are losing weight below like 2.5% of your body weight, then add another 100 to 150 kilocalories. A slight gain, and we're talking about a slight gain when we are slightly below 0.5% of the body weight on a weekly basis, then super easy, because as I said, main gaining, we can get a bit heavier as we're building up muscle, and also then our intake increases. So in that case, nice. If you have a big gain, that's something that we want to avoid, because it also will interfere with your progressive overload in dips and pull-ups, as the new additional body weight needs to be taken into consideration, which can be quite difficult sometimes. So if you have big gains, bigger than 0.5% body weight per week, then I would decrease the calories by 100 to 150 calories. And with that, on the long run, you can always adjust your calories to match your goals and then main gain forever.